What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my first impressions of the launch version of Sovereign Syndicate, a narrative game much in the style of Disco Elysium that is releasing on January 15th. I'm able to bring you this video a little bit early on the 11th, courtesy of the developer Crimson Herring Studios giving me a review key. The actual embargo is lifting today, so you might see some actual reviews of it, but I'm obviously not finished yet, though my hope is to get it done before the 15th. With that in mind, what is Sovereign Syndicate? Well, it is a narrative RPG set in a Victorian steampunk-era London, focusing on, of course, fantasy elements, if the Minotaur didn't tell you that. But before we dive in too far, I do want to offer what I imagine will be the most critical piece of information for a lot of people, and that is that the launch version here is not voice acted. This is an indie RPG, which means, simply put, I don't believe they had the budget. However, they have said that one of their first priorities, if the game sells well, is to in fact get it voice acted, so take that how you will. But otherwise, let's talk a little bit about the story. Sovereign Syndicate focuses on three different characters: a Minotaur named Atticus, a human woman named Clara, and a dwarf known as Teddy alongside his automaton named Otto. Each of these three characters has their own role to play in a sort of grimy imagining of this fantasy steampunk world, alongside a particular set of skills that you can customize a little bit to allow them to navigate the various possibilities through any given situation. Now, in this particular case, the broader narrative, while not something I want to spoil, of course, is basically dealing with a lot of different disappearances around the city. And each of these three gets involved in that in their own way, which brings us to the gameplay side of things. They've made a few changes, I would say, since the last time I played one of the demos, not to mention just the UI, of course, but also things like actual mechanics I haven't seen in any of the demos yet, but most of it's pretty easy to get your head around. Now, right when you start any character for the first time, so across the first few chapters of the game, you'll pick their initial specialization, which is their starting attributes and basically what they're good at. This also gives them an initial trait that opens up extra dialogue options. Each character has 4 options. As you start playing the game and working through different conversation options, you'll notice various tags for different stats, and utilizing those increases your humors. Humors are effectively experience points, and as you use more and more of the same type of conversation options, those will level up and of course make you better at them. However, it's not just your base skill level you have to worry about. There is an element of randomness, which is essentially a dice roll presented through tarot cards instead. Each one of these different stats and humors is associated with a different tarot deck. So whenever you roll for a check on something, it's your base ability plus whatever you draw for the tarot versus whatever the difficulty level of the check is. Now, to maintain that essence of randomness, it is possible to draw an auto-fail tarot or an auto-success, much like with an actual dice roll in a lot of these games. So you can make things mostly certain a lot of the time, but it's never 100% guaranteed. Another element to this, though, is your character's temperament. This seems to have replaced the health mechanics that they had earlier. Temperament basically being your character's overall mood, which ranges from hopeful and happy to weary and depressed. Interesting, though, is that these also give you unique conversation options. If it's above or below a certain level or sort of in the middle, that can open up extra options as well. Another thing you can do, though, is through certain actions unlock further major tarot cards or major arcana, which are tarot cards that you earn, and then they confer a trait of some sort, which opens up specific dialogue options. Now, each of these various stats for each individual character is also represented by a voice in your head, again, somewhat similar to the way Disco Elysium handles it. Now, as for the gameplay beyond those things, the game is structured into chapters. Each chapter puts you in charge of one of the characters here, where you'll be able to wander around the various maps involved in this imagining of London here. This is going to put you into contact with characters of all sorts, and can even give you side quests and objectives beyond the main one. Then you can sort of puzzle out and approach however you want, based upon the skills your character actually has. So it's a lot of running back and forth, talking to people, puzzling out how and when to do certain things, and of course advancing the narrative. As far as first impressions go, I've been enjoying it thus far, but it must be said that a narrative game lives and dies by its narrative. So overall, I think my final recommendation for the review will come down to just how good that narrative winds up being, how it ends, what the narrative consequence of a lot of various choices are, etc. And it's still a little early for me there, so I don't have answers to those things, but that's what I'm looking at going forward from here. So far, I've enjoyed the writing quite a bit, with each individual character definitely having their own personality, which makes even similar approaches to different situations feel different based on the character you're playing. As Clara being forward with someone is quite a bit different from Atticus being forward with someone, for instance. Now, before I move to wrap this impressions video up, on the technical side of things, it's feeling pretty good. Haven't had any substantial issues at all. Those smaller games like this are usually a little better off in that regard. So really the only thing I have to report on that front in this video is that one loading screen took a ridiculously long time to actually load, to the point where I was about to just use Task Manager to force quit it, but then it finally decided to work. But outside of that one random thing, the rest of it's been running pretty well, which pretty much wraps up what I've got for you in this video. Again, the review for this one shouldn't take me too long to get done, but it is my son's birthday this weekend, so we shall see. That's going to do it for me, though. By all means, let me know what you think about this title down in the comment section below, which of course means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz, but regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.